At this time, I'd like to call the meeting of the Plaquemines Parish Council, the sole governing authority of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, to order. And the machine is open for roll call. Let the record reflect that all members are present except Councilmember Thalamy and Councilman Kanovich. At this time, we'll move to the prayer led by Councilmember LaFrance and the pledge led by Dr. Gouy.
We take this moment to acknowledge Almighty God and thank Him for His bountiful blessing, especially for the parish natural resources. We pray for all of those who are ill and lost their lives due to this pandemic. We pray that this pandemic comes to an end and for the world move forward to a healthy and brighter future. We pray that this government body, comprised of both council and administration, will always serve our parish with honesty, humility, and equality for all. And as this government body gathers here today, we pray for the wisdom to know right from wrong and the courage to do that which is right. This we pray in Jesus' mighty name, and all God's children said, amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time, we'll move to item 2.
Agenda item 2, executive session, there are none. Agenda item 3, status report by the Executive Port Director.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the board. I am Sandy Sanders, Executive Director of Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District. Follows is my Executive Director's report for the reporting period of 10 December to 12 January. During this time frame, I met with Bruce Lambert, who is the new Regional MARAD representative for the Gulf Central region. We will be working with Bruce as we go through the process of being accepted as what they title a designated project. This will allow the PPHTD to apply for grants from the Maritime Administration. I gave Bruce a quick port tour to give him a better grasp of the immensity of the project. We conducted several meetings with the Plaquemines Parish government regarding the transfer of the ferries. The transfer is complete, and the ferry operation is now a new department within the PPHTD. I recently set up a Microsoft Teams meeting with the chair, the vice chair, along with Damon Daniels and Matthew Kegg with Tallgrass. The property was discussed, and I offered the following scenarios for the disposition of the property, and this is right out of the contract. And I know that it is an item on for discussion later on, but it is part of my notes. First of all, Tallgrass will continue to pay the pilot payments and will be under an obligation to pay the port an administration fee of $200,000 per year starting at the earlier of final investment decision or December 28th of 2022. The contract also provides that Tallgrass is under an obligation to release the portion of the property if the CPRA determines it is needed for the diversion so that the port may, in turn, sell the property to CPRA at fair market value. The proceeds from the sale would be turned over to Tallgrass for a credit towards its investment. The contract also contemplates Tallgrass reaching a development decision on or after December of 22 as to whether or not the project is viable. Until Tallgrass makes that decision, it has to continue to make pilot payments in the annual administrative payment to the port. If Tallgrass determines the project is not viable, the agreement can be terminated and Tallgrass can market the property and have the port sell the property minus the 50 acres adjacent to Ironton, which is already set aside for non-development, but the property cannot be sold for less than fair market value. If it is sold for fair market value, all the proceeds will go to Tallgrass, and the PPHTD has no further financial obligations with them. If there's no purchaser for fair market value, the port and Plaquemines Liquid Terminal can attempt to lease the property. In that case, the proceeds from such leasing would be turned over to the Plaquemines Liquid Terminal until they have been reimbursed all of their investment costs plus 12%, after which time the port will receive all subsequent lease payments. My last point is, I can't speak for Tallgrass, but I think this is where they're headed, and I will ask the chair and vice chair of their opinion after we spoke to them this week. But another potential would be for both parties to agree to amend the contract and attempt to lease all or portions of the property to another party and or other parties. Once again, I say this is how they're leaning. I'm not speaking for them, but the trial balloons that they are talking with us, looking at honoring the commitment to the project, honoring their commitment to Ironton, and really trying to find a new leasee for the project. I believe this is the way that they're going to go. Mr. Roussel was very adamant, though he wanted to have more than just a quarterly meeting, so I've already set it up for monthly, and if you see fit for frequent than that, obviously, we'll go with that. In that case, the proceeds from such leasing would be turned over to Plaquemines Liquid Terminal until they have been reimbursed all of their investment costs, plus the 12%. And once again, this is the route I believe they are taking, reading between the lines when we talk. John Helmers with PPG and I recently had a meeting with our two state senators, Senator Hewitt and Connick. Senator Carter could not join us, regarding the Point Celeste pump station. The United States Army Corps of Engineers stated that the pump station was a parish responsibility and they could not add it into our request for funding after Hurricane Ida, of which we attempted. We explained to the senators that the pump station is antiquated, most of the time running only on one out of the 4 pumps, and it is designed to put in an extra 2 pumps, giving it 6. It is the main pump station to drain the entire Port Maritime campus. We provided videos and pictures of the Citrus property post-Ida and told them of the plight of the parish, Phillips 66, Ironton, etc. as a result. I also reminded them this is where Venture Global and the proposed container terminal are going to be locating, and we are in dire need of financial help. We are ensuring it is added to the capital outlay plan and has our highest attention. I will provide updates on this as we progress. Mr. Chairman, I just gave to you an email that I just received, which was a follow-up from Senator Connick regarding the capital outlay, and as you can attest, we're under a tight calendar to get it done, but John Helmers and I are going to be digging in on a joint basis to do exactly that. Lastly, the port participated in the monthly stakeholders meeting held in Baton Rouge. I have invited the port developer, Chris Fetters, today to give an update on port issues and to introduce some members of his team to present to the board and the public a glimpse of the container port project. Chris?
Thanks, Sandy. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy New Year. We are happy to be here again and happy to start off 2022 with a lot of positive news. We've got a number of updates for you that are going to be driving a lot of what we're doing in 2022. Most importantly and most recent in the last couple of days, as Sandy and I were together yesterday, I was informed by the investor I have for land acquisition that the agreements are complete and the funds transfer is underway. I've notified both sellers that we have under agreement to begin the final legal proceedings with contracts so that we can complete the land acquisition takedown mainly around parcel 6 as our focal point, as well as some other tracts of land on the main maritime campus. I will keep Sandy and the staff updated as those dates become more clear, but I am very pleased and very relieved that that is now in a forward progress moment. Second, as Sandy said, we did participate in our monthly stakeholder meeting that was the last 2 days in Baton Rouge. We have now grown the team to almost 40 people that participate on a regular basis. Representatives from those teams are here that are assisting LA23 in various components of this first phase of the development. In addition to that, we have active participation from AP Moeller Terminals, as well as our customer that we have secured with that project. And in addition to some secondary staff and partners from the area, such as trucking and rail experts that work with us on a regular basis to ensure that we're headed down the right path. I have two of the gentlemen here with me today. The first one is Jimmy Screen. Jimmy represents Volkert. He is the principal in charge for the mainline extension project for us. They have taken over the project on a day-to-day basis to assist LA23. That work began in October of last year. We have progressed according to the schedule, great advances at the end of the year and the beginning of this year. We have a number of our subconsultants under contract, and they have begun work, whether it be the survey work, environmental assessment, right-of-way determination, things of that lead us up to that 10% design threshold, which is our first benchmark. Jimmy's going to come up and present a few slides, once again for the public, of the overall process of the project, where we are in the schedule, some of the key milestones that we're looking to achieve over the next few months. Jimmy?
Good afternoon. I appreciate the opportunity to provide an update for you this afternoon. And as Chris said, my name is Jimmy Screen from Volkert. We'll go ahead and get started here, make sure that it's up on the screens. What I'll do is provide an overview of the project itself, some basic descriptions of that. We'll talk about the organization that we have in place to provide the project execution, cover some of the scopes and deliverables associated with that, take a look at the schedule, and then also talk about community and stakeholder engagement. As you're aware, the mainline extension will include the planning, permitting, design, and construction of roughly 8 miles of new track from right at the terminus of the Myrtle Grove area there. We'll be managing this through various phases and delivering the project through an integrated project delivery system. We found this the best way to do that. We're currently in this initial phase, which includes the studies, investigations, and assessments, and we'll evaluate the preferred route alternatives to get to that 10% design. The picture you see on the right there just includes some possible routes, and again, that's general information at this point. Nothing's been selected. We'll then move into subsequent phases that will bring us to 30, 60, and 90% designs. And throughout this whole process, we'll be providing updates to you throughout the progress of the project. The organization that we have in place to provide that support, Volkert is in the program management role, rolling up to LA23. We also have HDR, which we should have them under contract here in the next couple of days, which will allow us to, excuse me one sec. Which will allow us to accelerate the project under HDR. We've got Cardno providing environmental permitting, Fugro with geotech services, and T. Baker Smith providing the surveying. Land acquisition is also included as well, and you'll see the various components and construction elements that are required to execute the project. Now, taking a look at some of the scopes and deliverables, you'll see here we do have the contracts from Cardinal, Fugro, and T. Baker Smith rolling up under HDR. When Chris mentioned that we've already begun work, we have. Cardinal, Fugro, and T. Baker have already done some desktop analysis and some initial surveys that once we get HDR under contract will allow us to quickly get to that 10% design. And that's important because we want to maintain our schedule and meet that schedule going forward. That'll include some of the critical issues analysis. They've been doing desktop reviews right now, and it will also include a capacity study through the operations itself. What I'd like to take a look at now is the actual schedule and what that looks like as we move forward. What you'll see on there, if you can see that, is we've been under contract and reviewing some of those initial studies and documents already. Right at this point, into Q4, beginning of Q1, we will have HDR under contract. Like I said, that should be in just a couple of days here. We're finalizing some of those terms and conditions of the contract, making sure that we're complying with the provisions of the funding. And we'll then move into phase 1 and phase 2 of the project, which I'll touch on here, which is really important from a construction standpoint. We're trying to do everything we can to maintain the schedule and advance that where we can. We do plan on completing the project by Q3 of 2023. When I talk about construction, some of the things that we have recognized as risks to construction include the permitting and design. That's something that's going through right now, that's already been initiated. We don't see any major issues with that at this point, but it's something that always could be a factor. The other piece is the long lead times for some of the equipment and supply of the track materials. To address this, what we've done is broken the construction down into 2 different packages. In the previous slide, you will have seen that starts in Q1, the construction. It's not actual in the field construction. We're starting with procurement of essential items that are long lead items that will allow us to maintain and meet that schedule. By doing this and having some of the track construction packages issued, it's going to allow us to really minimize some of that risk that typically could slow down a project. That track package will be from basically the top of the sub-ballast forward, and then the civil works will take it up to the sub-ballast. So this is not something that we have to wait on. We're already starting those procurements and providing information to LA23 about what are those items that are long lead items. What does it cost? So we can make sure that that's incorporated and consistent with the budget that we have established for the project. Speaking of the budget, this is an outline of the total project budget as defined. And it also includes a contingency element that's pretty significant part that will allow us to, I think, meet any potential risk that we have on the project itself. This is probably the most important component that I think in this presentation is the community and stakeholder engagement. We're committed to developing and implementing a stakeholder engagement plan that makes sure that the community input is included in this process. We're going to seek your cooperation and input as well throughout this whole process to make sure that it's in alignment with the interest of the community. The other aspect of it is I think it's already been presented before about Plaquemines First. That is the intent. The intent is to really provide that basis for the parish to make sure that they have the right opportunities to participate in this project. We've asked South Louisiana Economic Council to spearhead that component for us. What they're going to do is compile and maintain that database of interested parties that want to participate in professional and construction services. They're also providing a third-party evaluation that's going to evaluate these different providers throughout various parts of the project. So you see there at the bottom for people that are interested, and I think this will be available after the presentation. If there are interested parties, we've got the database there that you can go ahead and register and provide your information and feedback. So we're tracking that. It's a very important part. At the beginning, we want to see how much participation and engagement we've had from the community and the impact that we've provided. That concludes my remarks for the mainline extension. Pending any questions, I'll turn it over to Chris and for the next part of the presentation.
Are there any questions from the board? Ms. Newberry?
Do y'all know about when y'all plan on engaging with the public? I mean, at what time of this year were you looking at?
Yeah, so with the public engagement, the first thing we're going to do is we want to get the initial phase 1 done so we have an understanding of what are the potential alternatives. When mentioned that, and you saw in the briefing, there's 3 alternatives, one of those being a no build, right? But once we have the other 2, that's when we then have some opportunity to engage. We've already been in the community and checked out some areas that we do think will have that impact. But the whole goal is to keep that inclusion, but that will probably be towards the end of Q1. But there's an ongoing engagement at this time. We've already talked to some members of the community on an informal basis, and there will be official forums as well to receive that feedback.
Thank you.
Dr. Gouy?
Chris, if you would, make sure that the site for the database gets given to the local paper, the Plaquemines Gazette.
Yes, sir.
And also to Bobby.
Yes, sir.
So they can put that on their website.
Yeah, and as a matter of housekeeping and administrative, both this presentation and the one by Mr. Nixon in a moment, along with my full roll-up, which will include this, will be provided to the board as is customary, as well as Sandy. But we will also ensure that it gets shared both with the paper and with Bobby. Appreciate the recommendation.
Any further questions from the board? Next.
Okay. You want to go ahead and you can pull? Yeah. Hopefully you didn't break it. All right, thank you. All right. So the second update I have is from Mr. Nigel Nixon. Nigel Nixon is the owner and the founder of Nigel Nixon and Partners. He was recommended to us through a series of interviews and searches. We sought to align ourselves with a key strategic advisor that had a global understanding of the container business. About 6 to 8 months ago, we officially brought on Mr. Nixon as a strategic advisor to LA23 to look at the front end design and recommendations around the container terminal. Nigel and his team, which is very robust, have been actively participating in these monthly meetings with us. They have been directly engaged with both our BCO as well as with AP Moeller, as Sandy and the administrative staff have been participating in those meetings as well. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Nixon and have him come up. He is going to provide you the current status of the container terminal, what the new updated versions of the renderings look like, and some of the impact on the commercial studies. Nigel?
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. Well, as Chris said, that we have a bit of international experience, and you can hear from my voice I'm not a local person, but it's a great privilege to be in your parish and I'd like to meet you all and hopefully get to know you a bit later. But for now, what I'd like to say to you is that we have, as Chris said, been engaged to try and impart some of our experience in developing ports of this nature, particularly in the private sector, I have to say, with financial investment around the world. And I think we were very heavily engaged. And my English accent will tell you I come from a country not quite a long way away. But in that domain, we helped the privatization of the UK port industry. So we kind of know our way around how to attract and investment, how do we make these things happen in an international forum. And what's really exciting about this from our point of view, as we got to know about this project and understood it, was how remarkable an opportunity it is to become a new gateway into the United States. The first thing we do in any project we look into, we come in, I think we're slightly jaundiced in terms of, well, is this really going to happen? And we have all these negativities and we start to investigate. The first thing we did under instruction from LA23 was to see what has been compiled over the years to generate this opportunity. If you like, a sanity check. So we were kind of ruthlessly went through the sanity check and discovered there were some very good things, there were some very irrelevant things, and there were some holes. But as we started to look at where these holes were, we started to fill them with opportunity. This is what I'm trying to say. And then we became convinced, I know LA23 were, but we need to be convinced if we could help. The good news is, of course, we were convinced. And I think I could best summarize this because I went with Sandy. He took me to the Pilots Institute, not that far away. And I sat in the simulator, or stood in the simulator, I should say, because I was on the ship deck in theory, going down the Mississippi past New Orleans. And it was kind of neat because it looked so real. Every time we went around a bend, you had to bend over because it was so real. Well, it was great seeing New Orleans, especially as an Englishman coming to visit, but I wanted to see what was it like here in Plaquemine, where the site was going to be or where the port was going to be. So we reprogrammed the simulator and down we went. And when we came past the site that was chosen for it, I asked the pilot and I said, well, what do you think of this location? Best place on the Mississippi. So that gave me that extra confidence because it's all about location and about this sustainability of a port. So that's a bit of briefing of where we came from. So if I just go on and give you a little bit of a quick summary, a heads up of where we are.
Full screen. Go to presentation.
Okay. Where's that then? No, it's new slideshow. Okay, sorry. Okay, let's go for it. From the beginning.
Here, let me stop. You got it?
I think so. Is that better? Okay. Right. So, having said that, we went through the exercise of validating the project from our sense. It was then important to really structure how we're going to deliver it. Okay? So this slide is an attempt to show the structure, the organogram of our team that we put together. If you look at it, you'll see there's a diverse of interests and specialities needed in quite a complex project with its challenges. If you look to the left, you'll see that we clearly can't do this project without a permit. And the permits in themselves are quite complex and they're very far-ranging in various aspects. But in order to do this and ensure we do de-risk the project, in other words, ensure we do get our permits, because without a permit you can't build, I'm sure as you know, we needed local knowledge and local people that can actually know the sea, know the river, know the location, so we can get the best advice possible to ensure that the permitting process is smooth and transparent and easy to achieve. So we've engaged a lot of local consultants, all specializing in different areas. We can go through the detail later if you wish, but they're all people that could add that extra value. And they're all being engaged and all currently underway to go through the permitting process. Okay, then we talk about the operations, because clearly we're building this facility for operators that want to transfer goods by containers in and out the terminal. So we need to make sure we understand the operational intent, and obviously customers that are going to come to the port, we need to make sure we provide for them. Okay? So we have a division there that looks after that, and then we have other people that are brought in on the study, which I've said, because at the end of the day, this can't happen without proper finance. And the financial institutions and those that are going to provide the finance for the project need to make sure it's sustainable. So what we've done is brought together a team that can help procure the project, particularly in a cost-certain manner, because if you don't have cost certainty, you don't have the investment. So it's been very important that we structure that. And we also have a very interesting challenge, like all big projects do. And the challenge in this particular case, because of the selected BCO, I don't know whether you know what a BCO stands for, but it particularly means a user. It's a beneficial cargo owner, to be precise. But that person, that entity, has a need, which is a catalyst for the development, for early occupation of the facility. And we're talking about a very tight time schedule. So how are we going to deliver that? So we need to understand what the risks are in deliverability. We have to deliver cost certainty, and we have to deliver quality, and we have to make sure that all parties are properly accommodated. And that's quite a challenging process. So early selection of an EPC, a special contractor responsible for design, is a key issue in achieving that. So we put together a team based on international experience that know how to deliver this with a track record of deliverability and time compliance. So really, that is all I wanted to say really about the structure. The point I want to convey here is this isn't just me giving strategic advice to Chris. It's making sure that we bring both local people who have got local knowledge and use the best they can to the benefit of the project, backed up by international expertise that we offer through a whole range of ports around the world. We know the stakeholders, we work with them for many, many countries, so we understand what we've got to try and deliver. So I find this overall, at this stage in the game, which is well advanced, a very challenging but very exciting project. And I think you guys should be, for me, saying this as an Englishman coming in from satellite, I think you should be very proud and very pleased that this opportunity has actually has feet. Okay? So, going back to the driver of the project, we did a commercial study. I'm only going to give you one slide, or probably about 1,000. That was all part of the analysis. But what it shows you, and we've been very conservative in looking at the business case, that the potential for the traffic that's going to generate the project in various phases is very, very significant. And it looks, and the growth rate and what's going to be expected is remarkable, really, for a location and a project of this size. Okay, so where we are today then, well, we've done the commercial study, we've validated the opportunity, we've satisfied the financial requirements to deliver, we have complied with and working with the BCO and other operator commitments. We mentioned Woolers. We know them, we know how they operate, we know how to comply with them. So that's ongoing as we fine-tune the project itself. And from any analysis and market study that we've done, it leads and cascades into a master plan. That is planning for today. This is not a wish list and thinking of nice to haves. This is a plan to suit real people that want to engage and want to contract. So we've developed that as a first phase, and this is where we are today. So this slide shows you what ultimately can be achieved on the river here in this project site. It's a significant terminal, up to about 3 million TEU. I mean, we're talking about a project that's bigger than the Port of Houston. You'd say, oh God, this is a fly in the sky. That's never going to happen, is it? You might say, and I probably would say that. But the reality is, having done the commercial study and having looked at the market and its location with the bottom of the river, the connectivity with rail, with ocean traffic and the transshipment opportunities, this is seriously achievable. But we can't do it all at one go. I mean, clearly it can't. It's got to be progressive. It's got to be done and expanded on the basis of the traffic it's going to be through contract. There's another picture, really, of what we'll do is the first phase. The first phase, as I said earlier, reflects the need of the BCO that we're engaging with today. And this has got to be delivered in very short time. I'll come on to that in a minute. And that has its challenges, as I said earlier. But that's what you're going to see, firstly, on the project. Those of you who probably understand a bit of engineering, I don't think I need to expand on that, but that shows you a typical slice through the project, and it'll give you an indication of the complexity that's going to be engaged in order to deliver the product for the user. Then we come on to the schedule itself. Well, as I said, the process is well advanced. You know, we've as I said, we've studied it. We're now in the permitting process. We're get to a point where we have sufficient concept design in agreement with the operators to start to tell and expose that information to the contractors so they can start to engage, so we can select the contractor that's going to ultimately deliver. And those contractors are, because of its size of the project, are very likely to be a team of those contractors are very good at river works, particularly experienced in the Mississippi in this location. And there'll be other contractors who are very experienced and very good at doing the ground behind the wharf, if you will, or the river works. So we've encouraged the teaming of people who are good at one, not so good at the other. Others are good at the other, but not so good at the first one. So we have the teaming opportunity to getting best approach, best quality, and best serviceability and time compliance. So we'll get the first phase, which will be aiming to get in about the middle of 2024. That's a very short time. So let's not kid, I'm not kidding myself, I'm not kidding LA23. It will have its challenges. But as I said earlier, the good news is we've faced these challenges many times before, so I think we know how to overcome them, okay, and mitigate against them. So what are the challenges then? The first thing is that clearly, even though you've got the right advice and help in terms of getting your permitting, you can't always guarantee you're going to get it. I mean, you have a jolly good chance of getting it, but who knows what you're going to discover through the information process. There could be a deal stopper, potentially. We insist not, because we've got the right people who know the river, know the location, and we've taken that on board going forward. The other issue is always about money at the end of the day. I'm sure, as you know, it's the big driver, and that is that clearly the business plan is based upon a CapEx number and an OpEx. But if for any reason that CapEx number gets exceeded, it kind of knocks out the business plan. So we've got to be mindful of that, and if we go beyond that boundary, that's a risk. Of course, the other risk is pretty obvious. If the commercial users that I talked about earlier, or our funders suddenly pull the plug and go, that could be a risk, no doubt about it. And then finally, you've got something you're all very familiar with, of course, is major events. I'm talking about climatic events or other events that could actually stop the process. But again, hopefully you mitigate and manage it. And people around this area, and I only can say that, I'm sure, as you know, they are fully aware and can comply to major events in a remarkable way. So there's a little bit of experience there that we can encapsulate. And finally, you've got the rail connectivity delays, which is, albeit not important in the first phase, because it doesn't rely upon rail. But as we want to expand the business and expand the facility, we will need to rely upon rail. So we've got to make sure that that connectivity and timing is together. And the final note I've got is that we are basing the river traffic on a number of vessels, and the vessels are new, they're state-of-the-art, and they're not there yet, but they've got to be built. And are we going to get them all on time? And that's a potential risk. But relative to the whole project, it's not a major one. However, they were. So next steps. We're in the process of starting contractor procurement, and that also means equipment. We saw pictures of the cranes. They're very expensive items, as you probably know, and there's a lot of them, so we've got to procure those. And over the COVID crisis, of course, the delay in manufacture is affecting everybody around the world at the moment, so we have to make sure we get our orders, if you like, in early and make sure that that process is started. We'll continue helping Chris to deliver this based on the experience, what I said earlier. And I think the other element that we haven't properly investigated yet, which we believe we should, is to look at the opportunities for roll-on, roll-off, which means, using ships with stern ramps that vehicles go on and off and up the river. It's a new opportunity for the area that we're trying to develop, but that's later. And obviously discussions with the ILA are clearly, this is going to take people, and people are going to operate the port. We want to make sure that all the conditions that work for the unions are compliant within the design. So we take that on board too. You may well argue, well, why are we going the EPC negotiated route, which I said earlier? Well, the reason very simply is we haven't got time to go any other way. So this is a very formal way we need to go in order to get the deliverability on time. Secondly, I'm structuring this to de-risk the procurement from the owner, which is LA23, and those supporting him, to the EPC. Now, we have to pay for that through the contract, but we must minimize risk to the owner, and we're procuring we will procure it in a way that will achieve that. And as I said earlier, from an investment point of view, I'm very focused on cost certainty. So we'll expect the deliverability to be cost certain. So I will not entertain, this is in theory anyway, change orders or anything that could escalate in terms of cost certainty. And that is something we've done time and time again, and luckily it works if it's done right. So that's what the objective, as I see it, and I think in support of LA23. Firstly, and important to you guys, is it maximizes the benefits to the parish. What we'll expect out of this whole project is that everybody within the parish will be involved, not everybody, but most people will be involved some way or somehow through the benefits of this. We're very mindful of that, and we're structuring it to involve as much local people through this process and support of those local people as we possibly can. We fully recognize that. Also, one of the visions that I know Sandy has, and I support it too, is to try and make this as a green, sustainable project. And let's be the flagship in the United States of having a facility. It's a new facility. They very rarely happen. It's a new facility of this size, so let's go for it, and let's make it as green and sustainable as we possibly can. I passionately want that to happen. We want to have the cost certainty. I've said that before. Timeline, I mentioned that earlier, is so important because that drives other issues. We must make sure that we look after the people who are going to use the facility and make sure we comply to their wishes, which is part of the driver. Quality, of course, goes without saying, and that's an important issue. And we've got to satisfy and comply with what the investors need. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Okay?
Any questions for Mr. Nixon?
Any questions from the board? Hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Nixon, for your presentation.
If you have no other questions for me, that concludes our update, with the exception that this material, along with the monthly update I provide on the other projects in written form to the board, will be compiled and submitted to you shortly in advance of the next meeting, so that if there are any other comments from the public, we can be prepared for those.
So the written comments the written reports, updates will start when?
I will probably submit them to your office as the chair on Monday, is what my target is, sir.
Okay, so this will be the first one we get, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right.
And it will include both of these presentations, Mr. Chairman.
Any further comments? Hearing none, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Move to the next item.
Sir, subject to your questions or comments, this concludes my report.
Dr. DeGoey wants to move to PLT, but I think we've already,
Mr. Chairman?
IB you said, or PLT?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Mr. LaFrance?
Yes. Mr. Sanders?
Yes, sir.
Did you or anyone from your administration met with this residents from Ironton about a buyout? Did you approach any residents in Ironton about buying their houses or a buyout?
We were asked to come and speak to them, 2 families.
May I ask who?
Sir?
May I ask who?
I'd rather not say in a public forum, but I'll talk to you after this. I don't mind saying, but I'm not sure if they would want to know.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And that's when I talked to you the other day and said that we went to one of the families and made sure that they got their energy turned on by Entergy.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Sure. Who did you bring along
One
with
second,
you?
cue in, please.
I can't. My computer's out.
He's out? Okay.
Anyway, who did you bring with you along for those conversations? Were you alone? Do you have anybody with you?
No, I had Mr. Fetters and Miss Tracy Riley.
Got it. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll move to item number 4. Oh, Doc, you wanted to talk about PLT. The comments about PLT have been addressed by Mr. Sanders. My comments on PLT were to try to get a presentation. Their comments to us in the Zoom meeting or the Teams meeting was that there's nothing to report. They have no project. And so as a result of that, my concern is that just what Mr. Sanders stated, what are we going to do with the property? Who's going to be responsible for what dollars amount? I do have a question. If it's sold for fair market value, that does not include the 12%, what happens with that? Are we liable for the 12% above the fair market value?
No, sir. On the sale, the 12% does not come into play.
All right.
All right. If it's sold for fair market value, and they, like I say, they take all the proceeds, and there's no financial obligation on the part of the port.
Right. Well, that's the only thing I have on PLT, unless anyone else has questions on PLT.
And, Mr. Chairman, this most likely will be ongoing until that date in December.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think let's be clear on the 12%. If per our conversations we've had, the 12% is if comes into play when we lease the property. Is that correct?
Right. If we lease the property, all lease payments will go to Tallgrass until they cover their investment plus 12%. That's where the 12% comes in. If it's sold, the 12% does not come in. It's whatever it sells for, as long as it is fair market value.
Just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And that 12% is a total of 12% on the 30.5 million?
Yes, sir.
Or is it a recurring annual 12%?
I will run that to ground just to be sure, but I'll report to you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll move to next item.
Item 4, bids and advertisements. There are none. Item 5, introduction of ordinances and resolutions. I have a few. These are all for Commissioner Roussel. An ordinance authorizing Sandy Sanders, Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, to purchase land owned by Brian and Vanessa Fisher and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. The next, a resolution authorizing Menard J. Sandy Sanders, Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, to execute an agreement with Evalve IQ LLC and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. The next, a resolution establishing the policy for Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District in regard to mandatory terms to be included in all port contracts for professional and other services and all contracts that extend beyond a single fiscal year, establishing the policy for Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District in regard to submitting all signed contracts to the council secretary within 2 weeks of the document being executed, otherwise to provide with respect thereto. And the last, a resolution authorizing Menard J. Sandy Sanders, Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, to execute a reimbursement agreement with LADOTD and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. And that is it.
Thank you. Move to the next item, please.
Item 6, ordinances and resolutions on second reading and final passage. 6A. 6A1 is being deferred. 6A2, an ordinance authorizing and directing the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District Executive Director Menard J. Sandy Sanders to negotiate and enter into a short-term lease agreement and a separate option for a long-term lease agreement with Plaquemines Land Ventures LLC of approximately 523 acres of that certain port property described in Englobo Exhibit A upon terms and conditions approved by the Plaquemines Parish Council as the sole governing authority of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Commissioner Newberry.
Yeah, I'll move with this motion. X for a second.
Second. Offered by Councilmember Newberry, seconded by myself.
Yeah, so I think some people were under the impression that when we first signed the lease, it was the whole package, but evidently it wasn't. So this is the next segment to Venture Global's lease of an extra 523 acres, which brings in $14,000 an acre. And with a short-term lease of, I believe, 4 years with a possible option of 30 years. So this is a good thing for the parish. As we move forward, it's more income, so this is really good news. And Sandy, if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, the 523 seems like an oddball number, but in the original contract, their requirement was for 1,200 acres. If y'all recall, we owned parcel 2 at the time, which provided 600 acres, and then we had to go to the landowner to purchase parcel 3 in addition to parcel 1. And then we had took a portion of parcel 3 to provide the full 1,200 acres. In the interim, they asked if they could lease 80 acres of that second 600 for laydown area, and hence the oddball number of 523. So it comes right at about 600 acres. So I just wanted to explain that to the board and anyone in the audience. So the contract is full. It's the full requirement. We all know that the postage stamp B3 is ongoing. It is almost ready for delivery, and that would make them whole. But they wanted to move out and get everything on the subsequent 500 acres and the B3 parcel when it came available.
While we're talking about this parcel, did the B3 go out for bid yet? No.
No, ma'am.
Any questions? In the agreement, it states that they're anticipating within 12 months of signing the document that B3 will be available.
Could you restate that, sir?
In the document, it states that they are anticipating or requesting that B3 be available within 12 months of the execution of this document.
I think that's very achievable.
And the other question, I guess, is the piano keys. Does this agreement cover the piano keys?
No, sir.
And so the piano keys will be added later?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Is there any additional money in this lease?
Yes, Mr. Arthur Henry, the increase in rental to the port will be approximately $7 million a year.
People need to know that.
That's what it'll be. Thank you. Any further comments or questions on the ordinance to approve the lease option with the lease agreement? Hearing none, machine is open.
Councilmember Newberry, you're going to have to vote verbally.
Yes.
Councilmember LaFrance.
Yes.
Councilmember Wong.
Yes.
It passes 7. Well, 7-0.
Let the record reflect that the ordinance is adopted 7-0. Move to the next item.
Item 6B is deferred. Item 6C, a resolution authorizing the Executive Director, Menard Sandy Sanders, to enter into an agreement with Mercury Public Affairs to provide consulting, advisory, and lobbying services regarding port representation at the federal and regional level for a 1-year term, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Commissioner Newberry.
Yeah, I'll move with this motion. Next for a second.
Councilman Newberry offers the resolution. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Gouy.
Let me finish handing this out. Okay, so we emailed and we also sent out copies of the, some changes on the contract. It's just simple changes. And I just want to apologize. I added Miss Christine Nielsen too, and I want to apologize. Her last name was misspelled, so we got that corrected for the record. Also, I made a copy and I sent out, Mercury sent us an email, I want to say either earlier this month or into December. And if you look on the second page, these are the projects they're working on, and also for the port and for the parish. There are also, I just want to put in public record that they're working on, here's a list of Baptiste Colette, coastal restoration grant for Plaquemines, an energy transfer port program, an IDA recovery. They're helping us to get some funding for the parish from that. and maybe some other things. I know they've been working with Becky Dukakis on some grants. But just a memo to the board of things that they're working on. So this is just a renewal of their efforts that they're putting in for the port and for PPG.
Is there any further comments? Mr. Sanders, on the, I realize the report is kind of like a statewide report and covers a lot of territory. Are there any specific projects that they are working on for us, like the pump station in Point Celeste?
Yes, sir. We are scheduled right now to go up the 2 days before Washington, D.C. Mardi Gras. He's got us lined up with the delegation. That is my short-term goal is to get that pump station. That's very important. And I think that we will also give them an update on the port itself. But protecting what we have is vital.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And the changes in the contract, we made these changes last year of trying to include the council secretary on communications,
Duly noted.
and it didn't happen. So I'm asking that it happen again this year, and we put the same amendment in the contract this year.
I accept full responsibility for that sloppy staff work.
Thank you. Any further comments or discussions?
Yes, I have one, sir.
Yes, sir. Mr. Henry.
I just want to know the fees.
The fee is a per-month fee. It's a month-to-month contract, and I believe it is $4,500 a month.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Any further comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman?
No, excuse me, Mr. Black, sorry. Yes,
Yeah,
Mr.
thanks,
Black.
Sandy. You mentioned you'll be, so I'll get there on the 25th. What day you guys planning on having that meeting in D.C.?
Right now, we have one scheduled with Cassidy, who I think is probably the most important because he was big, one of the few Republicans for the infrastructure fund. I've got to get that time changed because it lands on our port date that Thursday. I've got a phone call into Vitter to see if he's got some wiggle room on that. And then he's lining up, and also might I add John Helmers with the parish is going to come and talk about that points list pump station.
Just do me a favor. I'll be there Tuesday through Saturday. If
Yes, sir.
anytime you have a meeting, reach out, let me know, and I may pop in if I have some flexibility.
Can do.
Thanks.
Any further comments?
Yeah, real
Ms.
quick.
Newberry?
Yeah, I had I'm sorry.
You got it.
I've had conversation with Mr. Helmer, and he has been in contact with Mercury also with the needs that our parish and our port. So he's been very instrumental in helping the port move forward with some of these grants and any kind of monies that's needed to help both public entities. So.
Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, machine is open. And the resolution is adopted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yeas, 1 abstention, and 2 absent. Next item, please.
Item 7C, presentation by PABI Board of Directors. Commissioner Gui.
Yes, Mr. Thomas?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Happy New Year's to you. I guess we can still say that to the 15th. Exciting times to be in Plaquemines Parish this year. A lot of things going on. So look forward to a tremendous 2022. Good afternoon. I'm Bobby Thomas, Executive Director of PABI. I want to thank Dr. Gui for putting me on the agenda, putting PABI on the agenda. Thanks to the chairman for recognizing us. Thanks to everyone for allowing us your time at the first meeting of the year. When you've been around as long as PABI, 18 years, you sometimes assume everyone knows everything about you. For those who may not be aware, I wanted to offer a little history about PABI. When the New Orleans Chamber announced in 2003 they were no longer facilitating regional chambers of commerce, a group of Plaquemines business owners founded the Plaquemines Association of Business and Industry to provide private sector leadership for the business community and to enhance the economic, civic, and cultural environment. Simply put, to advance business opportunities and the quality of life in Plaquemines Parish, where most of our members, employees, and their families reside. The organizers of PABI first set a goal of 50 members. That was quickly surpassed, and our membership has been sustained for many years between 150 and 200. PABI is self-funded through dues paid by our members. It was determined early on that the organization would be more than a social group holding monthly luncheons. The goal was to bring in speakers of topical interest to our members, work towards an improved business climate, work with the education system to facilitate training of future employees, work with local government to promote infrastructure, and weigh in on important issues of the day as they arise. In fact, many members have said they would only remain a part of PABI if we were a working organization offering opinions and solutions on issues. It's a key component of our success. Another part of our success has been our leadership. Several council members have served on our board either prior to or following their term in public office. Other than myself and my office manager, all of our officers, board, and committee chairs are volunteers. We've had many excellent leaders who have guided us in our organization, and I'd like to introduce one of them to you today. That's Betsy Pavlovich, President of Narin Concrete, who is our 2022 chairperson and a great example of our organization's leadership. Ms. Pavlovich.
Chairman Roussel, Commissioners, I want to thank you for allowing PABI this opportunity to address the board. As Bobby stated, I am Betsy Pavlovich, President of Narin Concrete. My late husband David's family founded Narin Concrete in 1957. In an age when many businesses only survive a few years, we are very proud of our legacy spanning 65 years. David was a board member and past chair of PABI and remained involved until his passing 4 years ago. Just as I was unexpectedly thrust into the role of president of our company, I was unexpectedly asked to join the board of PABI. My first thought was, what could I possibly contribute to the benefit of this business organization? What I quickly learned is that when you assemble a large cross-section of business people in a room, everyone learns from one another. Among our membership and on our board, the range is from mom-and-pop businesses to Fortune 100 companies. Serving on the PABI board, I learned a lot about our parish and the extent of our business community. I was honored to be elected as the 2022 chair of PABI. Parish government faces many hardships, as do our business members. Supply chain issues, labor shortages, and inflation are affecting us all. Continued efforts to combat coastal erosion, improve infrastructure, and reduce insurance costs are all challenges that demand we work together if we're going to maximize our chances of success. PABI has taken a position on some matters with which some council members have disagreed. Agreeing to disagree should not stop us from working together on issues where we have a common goal for the good of the parish. Those far outnumber the times we disagree. I greatly respect the dedication and commitment each of you has made by serving in public office. I imagine the job is sometimes thankless, but hopefully achieving positive results is rewarding. I'd like to conclude by offering the support of PABI on any issue where you believe our collective efforts could benefit the parish. We have always extended an invitation to elected officials to attend all of our public events, and many of you have attended, and we're grateful for that. It's one way to keep you familiar with what's important to us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your presentation.
Excuse me, one more second, please, Mr. Chairman. So thank you, Betsy. As you can tell, where Betsy's heading, to a Jesuit soccer game after our meeting today. So, but just to recap, exciting times at Plaquemines Parish. Most people know that I live in Buras. A lot of times that hour drive home, it's an opportunity for me to decompress at the end of the day. It's also a chance to see what's going on. First thing you see driving up is the big Vulcan aggregate sign by the IGP methanol property. Finally, something's going on there. Then you see the cranes that have arrived at NOLA Oil Terminal. The pilings are supposed to be start going down next Tuesday. Exciting times. And I love taking I try to limit to 4 or 5 pictures every day when I pass Venture Global. And one day I'll put all these together. That's those things you say you're always going to do, and see the progress being made. That's a beehive of activity down there right now. I know Councilman LaFrance, Richie, you see it all the time down there. But for anybody else who hasn't, please make a special trip down there and see what's going on. It's very exciting times. With that, thank you very much for everything y'all do. Please let us know what we can do to help. Many of y'all have made our council caucus, our board caucus that we've had in past years. We had to take a hiatus last year because of the pandemic. We're looking forward to having it again next month. Please be on the lookout for the invitation. Thank you very much.
Dr. Good, complete.
Thanks for the update, Bobby. The door's always open both ways. So we're looking forward to a great year, and the development is amazing. It's mind-boggling to see the amount of activity, and I'm glad you brought that to everyone's attention. Thank you.
Any further comments, questions? Hearing none, move to the next item.
Item D, presentation by the Corps of Engineers on the NOV levy alignment. Commissioner Roussel.
Yes, I distributed a report to the members just now. Unfortunately, due to the COVID, that the Corps of Engineers representative who was going to make the presentation today was not able to come, and I told him that we would schedule it for a later date. But what we're trying to do is get the Corps to bring everyone up to speed on exactly where we are. These written reports, they'll tell you a little bit, but it's not near what I'd like him to express to you in person. So we'll have that coming up, and at this time I'll defer that item to the next meeting, which will be actually a month from now when I ask him to come back. Next item, please.
Item 8, approval of the December 9th, 2021 regular meeting minutes.
I have an offer to accept the minutes. Councilman Blink, second by Councilmember LaFrance. Any comments or discussions on the minutes? Hearing none. On the minutes, sir?
When you accept these minutes, does this mean that everything that was passed is going to be okay? We're not going to have the discussion on District 1 and District 2 where I live.
No,
they want to change the zoning.
No, sir, that's another item for another meeting, which will come up shortly. What this is the approval of the December 9th, 2021 regular meeting minutes as printed and distributed, and so for the port only. And that item that you're referring to will come up on the council agenda at the meeting immediately following this one.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any further comments or discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, machine is open. And the minutes are adopted 7-0. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the Plaquemines Port Harbor Terminal? So offered by Councilmember LaFrance, seconded by Mr. Blink. The machine is open on adjournment. And the meeting is adjourned at 4:10.